tonight. What to expect ahead of Monday's new session of Saskatchewan's legislature. Some winter highway driving reminders as another snowstorm takes aim at our province. And it may not be Willy Wonka's factory, but this Saskatoon woman's chocolates are getting attention for their beauty and their price.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Friday, November 22nd, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. I'm Ethan Williams. Thanks for joining us. The new session of the Saskatchewan Legislative Assembly begins Monday, and with it comes the election of a new speaker and the government's throne speech. And after a closer election than we've seen in many years, the House will look a lot different. Adam Hunter explains.
The Assembly floor has been reorganized following last month's election. It's something not seen in more than 15 years in the House. The government side with 34 seats, the opposition side with 27. In the spring, the NDP opposition had just 14 members. And with all that new opposition, it'll no doubt add to the volume heard in this room.
We've got to lower costs for Saskatchewan people, and we need to do it now. People can't wait. Folks certainly can't wait until next tax season to see some relief. People voted for action, and we aren't going to waste a second in the House demanding that action.
With more NDP MLAs, the government must now ensure they have enough members in the House to pass bills and survive votes. And they'll likely lose one of those votes on Monday. The fall sitting will start with the election of a new speaker. That speaker will most certainly come from the government side, dropping their voting number to 33. Following the speaker's election, the lieutenant governor will deliver the throne speech. The throne speech will outline the government's agenda for the rest of this year and into the future. The government is expected to introduce a number of bills related to election promises. The fall sitting is expected to last no longer than 3 weeks. Adam Hunter, CBC News, Regina.
And the process of choosing a speaker may prove to be more interesting this time around, thanks to recent events in the legislature. Adam Hunter joined the rest of the political panel on CBC Radio's Morning Edition to discuss.
Monday's going to start with that speaker election. That'll be the first thing that happens. And normally, maybe a speaker election wouldn't get a lot of attention and only the political nerds like us would care and pay attention to the votes and who's up for it and who wants it. But this time there's a couple of reasons. One being that the last couple of speakers didn't have the grandest old time in the job, let's say. And so Randy Weeks is still technically the speaker until Monday. Of course, we know a lot about his story. Mark Doherty before that. Even going back to your guys' time, there's other speakers that had some run-ins with the government. So I think this is going to be something that we'll watch for. The other thing is that the process of elimination really gets down to numbers, and with a number of rookies, more than a dozen rookies, and then about 15 to 17 people now, including the Premier and Cabinet, the government only has 3 people to choose from. And so that's Blaine McLeod, Doug Steele, and Todd Gowdy, all of which have differing levels of experience in the House. But those would be the 3 candidates. And so I think what I'm more going to watch for is what happens with that election. And if that person, how they grab the opposition leader grabs the speaker and the Premier grabs the speaker and they drag them up. Are they going to be really dragging the new speaker up this time? They're like, no, thank you. But in all seriousness, that's going to add to some intrigue on Monday.
There is that theatrical dragging of the speaker up to show it's not the easiest job in town, but that is really quite true of the last couple speakers, as Adam says.
Particularly when you have to check them for firearms.
So, what are you watching for in this?
Well, it's going to be interesting because we have this 27-34 split, right? And so the NDP can immediately, by math, eliminate the one that they don't want most, which is the one the government does want most, because government always wants someone that's going to be most favorable. It's a neutral position, but come on. wrong. We know it's not completely neutral. So whoever wins has to make a decent enough pitch to the opposition to want to win that second ballot support, because on the second ballot, obviously, with 3 people, they can get whomever they want. But that's going to be the real question. And perhaps even on the first ballot, if they're not careful, the government might not get the speaker they want. I don't know if there's much difference in terms of the approach of the 3. All 3 have been kind of low-key guys, and none of them, I don't think, have been known to be blatantly partisan. They're not the kind of guys that were standing up and doing the member statements that were most political and everything else. These are generally lower-key guys on the back bench. Mr. Gowdy, I thought, was someone that might be headed for cabinet along with Mr. McLeod, but that's still a possibility. Mr. Steele seems to be the one that's most acceptable to government based on his service and everything else. But I guess we'll see. It's going to be kind of intriguing, as Adam said, and it's usually not. But I pity them for the job. If the government's smart, they'll low-key everything up to and including this. This has to be a session where they have to turn down the boil.
A Minnesota court has convicted 2 men on human smuggling charges. The case involved a family from India that froze to death trying to cross the Canada-U.S. border in 2022. An Indian national and an American were found guilty on all counts of human trafficking and criminal conspiracy. They were also found guilty of culpable homicide not amounting to murder. That's defined as an act that's not committed with the degree of intention and knowledge required for a murder charge. The family of 4 died crossing from Manitoba to Minnesota during a blizzard. 2 of the victims were children, one of whom was an infant. Canadian authorities discovered their bodies just 12 meters from the border. The 2 men will be sentenced at a later date. They could each face 55 years in prison. One of the key figures in the Freedom Convoy protest has been found guilty on 5 counts. An Ottawa judge ruled Pat King is guilty of mischief, counseling others to commit mischief, and counseling others to obstruct police. He was also found guilty of 2 counts of disobeying a court order. The Alberta resident was found not guilty of intimidation and obstructing police himself. Sentencing is set for January. In January 2022, the truckers' convoy, which drove in from Western Canada, attracted thousands of demonstrators to Parliament Hill. They were protesting against public health restrictions, COVID-19 vaccine mandates, and the federal government. Streets were gridlocked and residents complained about the noise. The Liberal government eventually invoked the Emergencies Act and froze the bank accounts of some participants to end the protest. A Regina-based chiropractor will be on trial for another week yet. Ruben Mans is accused of sexually assaulting 7 women under his care. Today, Mans took the stand for the 2nd day, and there's still more to come at his trial before it can wrap up. Jeffrey Tram brings us the latest.
Ruben Mans sat in the witness box for the 2nd time on Friday. He pleads not guilty to 7 counts of sexual assault. Medical reports were used as exhibits by the defense today, and Mans was asked to break it all down. He spoke confidently as he talked about his expertise on chiropractic techniques, showing the jury the movements he would make on different types of stretches. A major point of contention during Friday's court proceedings was a specific neck stretch. His complainants have testified Mans pulled or touched their breasts while he was performing it. But when asked if that stretch resulted in him touching the complainant's breasts, Mans says it did not. He was asked multiple times about whether he abused his power to take advantage of his clients for sexual purposes. He denied that claim each time. Mans was emotional when talking about the implications of this case on his business. He said he relied on referrals, and that stopped when the case went public. Tears came to his eyes when he was talking about the implications for his employees. Cross-examination is set to begin on Monday. Jeffrey Tram, CBC News, Regina.
A worker has died at the Evraz steel plant in Regina. The company says the contractor was fatally injured on Tuesday. In a statement to CBC, Evraz says it is cooperating with an investigation into the death, but it did not provide any more details about what happened. Evraz says it is committed to supporting employees and contractors in the wake of the incident. The company has operations in Saskatchewan and Alberta and is based in Chicago. And RCMP say a person has died after a two-vehicle collision near Regina. The crash happened Wednesday morning on Highway 6, about 20 kilometers south of the city. A truck and a semi-trailer collided. The driver of the truck was declared dead at the scene. He has been identified as a 38-year-old man from British Columbia. The driver of the semi-trailer was taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries.
I think it keeps me going because I like bringing things to Saskatoon that people otherwise wouldn't be able to have.
Well, coming up, we will take you inside one Saskatoon woman's garage where she makes luxury chocolate bars. And it's a hobby she just took up a few years ago. Demand is high, but you'll have to shell out some cash to get your hands on one. And you only have one chance a year to buy them. That story and a preview of our next snowstorm when we come back. Welcome back. Well, the Grey Cup has been hoisted and the winners have been crowned, but the Saskatchewan Roughriders are already looking ahead to 2025. The football operations staff is still grinding away on what went wrong and what went right in 2024. All of this is in preparation for free agency early next year. There are some big names that will become free agents, including quarterback Trevor Harris, 4 different Canadian offensive linemen, defensive lineman Micah Johnson, and defensive back Marcus Sales. Vice President of Football Operations and General Manager Jeremy O'Day says the team will take its time with any decision.
It's early, so we just started the evaluation process. So our year ended, then we went to Grey Cup, and then the coaches turned their evaluations, and like we do every year, and then we have those discussions that are happening this week. So we haven't made a decision on any of the players yet, as far as who's coming back, who we want back. Doesn't mean that we do want them back or we don't want them back.
The Riders will still have time to re-sign players they want to keep. CFL free agency won't start until the middle of February, with the CFL draft to follow later in the spring. Well, a Saskatoon woman spends her days working as an oncology pharmacist, but by night, she's in her garage until bedtime making luxury chocolate bars, selling them to customers around the world. And some pay a pretty penny to get their hands on one. She takes us inside her chocolate factory.
Here's kind of a sneak peek. My chocolate is some of the most expensive chocolate in the country, probably. So let's make some stamps. I think it keeps me going because I like bringing things to Saskatoon that people otherwise wouldn't be able to have. The chocolate that I'm bringing in is extremely expensive, and I'm treating each single bar like it's a piece of art. This was a viral sensation on the internet this year. Everybody was raving about this chocolate bar that's made in Dubai. And I decided to make a version here for Saskatchewan. My most expensive bar to date, it's $100 for one bar. So what I'm selling isn't just a tasty chocolate bar, it's something that I've poured hours and hours and hours into in terms of flavor combinations, artistic styles, painting, and then that chocolate that, like I said, no one else really has in the city. Only do this once a year. And I double my advent calendar count every year. There'll be 45 this year, and then probably, I wanna guess like about 200 bars. The fastest I've ever sold out is 3 minutes, and the longest it's ever taken is 12, I think. It is pretty cool, and it's not just in Saskatoon. It's all over Saskatchewan, all over Canada, the United States, and I also ship to the Netherlands. Over the years, we've kind of added a few pieces of equipment here and there, so it does look very Breaking Bad, but it's actually quite impressive, all the different pieces that we have. So the main chocolate machine that you'll be looking at is the tempering machine. So this is what I use to temper my chocolate. It gets everything ready for it to be casted into the mold. This is my spray booth, which is what I call my Dexter booth. It looks awful, I know that, but it's all just cocoa butter. Everything that you see in here that's covered in stuff, it's just covered in chocolate or cocoa butter. I'm an oncology pharmacist, so that means that I help cancer patients with their care. I know a lot of people always ask me, when are you gonna quit your job? When are you gonna quit your job and do this full time? chocolate full time. And the reason why I enjoy it so much is because I only do it once a year. It gets my creativity flowing, and it kind of gives me a little bit of a break from, the heaviness of work.
Well, another snowstorm is on the way, and the province wants to make sure you get the most up-to-date information before hitting the roads. It's launched a new ad campaign around the highway hotline. This commercial and others can be found on TV and online. The campaign promotes the new terms and colors being used on the highway hotline map this winter, including pink for snow-covered roads, yellow for partly covered, and blue for travel not recommended. It's also reminding people to be cautious around the nearly 300 snowplows and winter equipment vehicles working the province's roads.
Approach them with caution, slow down, give them space. That's for our employees' safety as well as the motoring safety. If you can imagine, it creates what we call like a mini snow blizzard where visibility is really poor. So slow down and pass when it's safe to do so.
Lees says snowplows should be treated as emergency vehicles, especially if they're pulled over and have blue and amber lights flashing. You can download the latest version of the Highway Hotline on your phone or visit the website.
This weather update is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz Regina, proud member of the Capital Automotive Group.
Well, as mentioned, it's going to be a good idea to have that app handy and ready to go as we see, well, kind of the calm before the storm here in Regina. And Riley Lachuk now joins us with a full look at our forecast. Hi, Riley.
Well, Ethan, we're looking at another round of accumulating snow coming to parts of the province as we get into the weekend. We have the snowfall warning now in place for a good chunk of south and central, including the Parkland region, Broadview, Moosomin, Yorkton, through Regina, Saskatoon, and into western parts of the province. Generally speaking, looking at 15 to 25 centimeters of snow as we get through the day Saturday, and into eastern parts of the province, tapering off as we get through the day on Sunday. So just like we saw earlier in the week, get ready for another round of snow that will bring with it some very poor driving conditions, visibility being a concern, of course, as we get into Saturday, and of course as we get into Sunday as well. It's all thanks to an area of low pressure in Montana that's already started to work its way up into that corner between the borders of Montana, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. So southwestern parts of the province already starting to see some light snow as we got through the day today, and that will intensify as we get into the weekend. So timing things out here, we see cloud building in as we get into the overnight period tonight, and then we start to see that snow really moving in earnest as we get into the day on Saturday. You can see the leading edge of that main band of precipitation starting to spread its way northeastward as we get into the day. So certainly by early afternoon, we are looking at that snow moving into the Regina area along that Highway 11 corridor up to Saskatoon and into the Battlefords with some of those heavier accumulations. That does start to move out as we get through the evening hours, but still some of this lingering into Sunday morning. I think Regina, a good chance of some flurries overnight Saturday into early Sunday morning. In fact, in the Parkland region, there's some of those higher elevations getting some of those higher amounts even as we get through the day on Sunday. In terms of accumulation, the forecast modeling has been pretty spot on with what we were expecting here. So yes, into that southeastern corner of the province, really only expecting that 5 centimeter range, but generally speaking, yeah, we're looking at that 15 to 25 centimeter range as we get through the weekend. So prepare for a good dumping of snow to come over the next 24, 36 hours. The winds also will be a bit of a concern with this one. We will see winds picking up 30 gusting 50, particularly in the southwest corner of the province as we head through the day on Saturday. Generally though, looking at 20 gusts up to 40 as we get through Saturday and Sunday. So that's really going to pick up some of that snow as we get into the weekend. A pretty healthy snowpack already. We'll take a look at this again on Monday and see how that changes after all this snow moves through. It tapers off in Regina through Sunday, and then look at this marked decrease in temperatures as we get into next week. Minus 16 on Monday, minus double digits through the rest of the week. Much the same in Saskatoon, minus 9 tomorrow. And Ethan, we're looking at temperatures in the minus double digits as we head through next week, but at least we get some sun back by the time we get early into the week.
Well, even an octopus's garden is no shelter in a BC bomb cyclone. This is video captured off Vancouver Island Wednesday morning. You can see the giant Pacific octopus clinging to the bottom as 10-meter high waves surged on the surface. The octopus clearly holding on with everything it's got. 8 arms, 2,000 suction cups, and 1 unbreakable grip. Stay with us. We'll be back after the break. Another tourist believed to have consumed tainted alcohol in Laos has died. The 19-year-old Australian had been brought to neighboring Thailand for emergency treatment at a Bangkok hospital. Her death brings the number of fatalities to 6. All the victims were foreigners visiting a town that is popular with backpackers. Officials believe they drank alcoholic beverages tainted with methanol. Laos faces an ongoing struggle with counterfeits of well-known alcoholic brands. The annual Halifax International Security Forum began Friday. The event brings together politicians, experts, and analysts to discuss security issues facing the world's democracies. This year, participants are tackling issues such as U.S. involvement in shared security under the incoming Trump administration and Trump's plan for dealing with Ukraine and Taiwan. Canadian Defence Minister Bill Blair expressed optimism in opening the conference.
After every election, there is a change of perspective and sometimes rhetoric, but our fundamental responsibilities, I think, remain unchanged. And I believe that there is great unity in recognizing what the real threats to our security, our safety, our citizens are, and that the best way to respond to that is together.
About 300 participants representing 60 countries are attending. The forum's president confirmed in a recent interview that uncertainty around international security has followed the U.S. vote.
So we've started to see some cloud cover start to build in already ahead of this area of low pressure that we're expecting to bring some heavy accumulating snow and some gusty conditions through the weekend. Your overnight temperatures look like this: -16s for Yorkton and Moosomin, Regina -14, bit warmer in that southwestern corner where we're looking at some of that snow starting already, and temperatures in the north, mostly cloudy skies. We'll see a bit of sun as we get through the day tomorrow, temperatures ranging from -13 to -21 in Stony Rapids. And yes, we'll start to see some of that cloud cover building in as we get through the day on Saturday, particularly into that western side of the province, as we expect some of that snow to start as we get later into the weekend. For the south, we're looking at that snow moving in certainly by lunchtime for the western part of the province and into the later afternoon for places like Regina. So stay safe on the roads this weekend.
Indeed. Okay, thank you, Riley. And that is it for us tonight. Of course, for news anytime, you can always head to cbc.ca/sask. That is where you can find the latest on the incoming snowstorm as well. We have the latest video content on our CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel, which you can subscribe to, and you can download the CBC News app as well. Thanks so much for watching. Stay safe this weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.